Part 1. The Kingdom That Never Lived. As spoken by Enki, the dragon in year 10. After the fall. You have earned a moment of truth. I watched you fight, and I watched how you moved among the wounded, even when fear clung to the air like smoke. A dragon does not offer trust easily, yet you carry yourselves with a measure of resolve that reminds me of a time long buried. I would not be speaking to you if I believed your hearts bent toward cruelty. The battlefield around us has seen enough of that today. Look at this place. 2 cities destroyed by hatred, their armies turned to stone fragments and molten remains by a single lay strike. The air is thick with burnt flesh, seared iron, and the sharp edge of broken enchantments. Magma pools glow where soldiers once stood. The wind carries ash that stings your eyes. This is the world you inherited in the 10th year after the fall. I have wandered through flames like these more times than I wish to count, yet the sight still stirs old memories that refuse to fade. You stand before me with your weapons lowered, and that tells me much about your intentions. You are not fools. You know what a dragon can do, yet you do not challenge me and you do not flee. Your calm interests me. Perhaps it is rare strength. Perhaps it is exhaustion. Either way, you have earned my attention, and few have done that since the fall reshaped everything. You want to know why I approached you instead of taking to the skies again. You want to understand why a creature like me would linger near mortals who nearly died in a conflict that was not theirs. The answer is tied to the memories that returned to me when the lay tore open this ground. What happened here is a shadow of something I lived through centuries ago. Your courage reminded me of those who once stood firm while illusions fell and kingdoms crumbled. That recognition stirred something in me that I had thought long silent. My name is Enki. I am the child of Alengenta the Old, eldest among dragons. My lineage carries weight that has followed me since my first breath. When I speak of the past, I speak of the year 700 after the fall, an age when ambition flowed through me with such force that it drowned out caution. I believed I was destined to rule a great domain, to build a kingdom that would earn the respect of dragons, mortals, and even myth itself. I wanted a realm that Alengenta would look upon with pride. In those early years, I succeeded. My kingdom rose across a wide and fertile land. Fields thrummed with life. Towers climbed high enough to brush the clouds. Stone roads carried merchants and storytellers who spoke my name with reverence. Children carved small dragons into wooden toys and pretended to be my guardians. I shaped laws and boundaries that seemed fair, and I believed my rule was a gift to all who lived beneath my wings. I remember those seasons with a mix of fondness and sorrow, for they were real enough to blind me to what would come. The first whisper reached me through the lay, gentle, almost inviting. It spoke with insight that matched my desire so closely that I accepted it without question. I did not yet understand the danger of being understood too easily. The architect drifted into my life through those whispers. It presented itself as a companion to my ambition. It guided the flow of magic through my lands and strengthened every corner of my realm. The blessings it promised appeared harmless at first. Storms broke apart before crossing my borders. Harvests grew rich. Construction thrived. I thought I had discovered a secret path to greatness. Small fractures surfaced as seasons passed. A child spoke of seeing the dawn repeat itself. A priestess forgot her own prayers. Scouts returned from journeys with stories that conflicted with the reports of locals. My advisors voiced concerns quietly, as if afraid the kingdom might hear them. I told myself these anomalies would resolve on their own, and that refusal to doubt would strengthen my rule. That decision carved the path toward ruin. Stories eventually reached me. Stories about an immortal man named Heath who wandered the world with 2 archfey at his side. Silver, who carried brightness even in darkness. Varuk, whose presence was sharp enough to cut through lies without effort. They were said to challenge illusions and confront false realms. I dismissed those tales, believing my kingdom stood too strong for such meddlers to threaten. When they crossed my borders, I felt confident that I would face them with calm authority. Confidence is fragile when it meets truth. Their arrival marked the beginning of unraveling, and the kingdom that once thrived beneath my wings soon revealed its hollow core. Part 2. The Three Who Walked Through My Gates. Though each piece of this memory scrapes against old wounds, settle yourselves among the stones and keep your eyes on the magma pools. Their glow can shift without warning. I have seen many dangers born from complacency, and I do not intend to let you join the dead that simmer beneath the surface of this battlefield. The day Heath and the Arch-Fae entered my realm began like any other. My kingdom sat beneath a sky so clear that it resembled polished glass. I perched upon the high balcony of my citadel and looked out across the land that stretched in every direction. Farmers worked in perfect rows. Rivers curved through the plains with shimmering precision. The rhythm of the kingdom felt harmonious, and the air carried a sweetness that I mistook for prosperity. What I did not see was the subtle tremor beneath that calm, a tremor born from magic woven too tightly around the world. I sensed the intruders before I saw them, a flicker in the lay, a shift in the air that tasted different from the gentle patterns I had grown used to. Imagine hearing a perfect melody for years, then noticing a single note that does not belong. That was what their presence felt like. My advisors approached with hushed tones and described three travelers who walked as if untouched by the illusions shaping the city. They spoke with confidence and looked upon the world as though they saw something more than the surface. I was intrigued, yet irritation stirred beneath that curiosity. I flew down to observe them myself. As I descended, I saw the citizens part around the newcomers with expressions caught between wonder and unease. The first one I noticed was Silver. Her hair was as black as obsidian, yet it shone with a texture that belonged to the Fae. She moved with a grace that made the illusions shiver as she passed. She smiled at passing children, but her eyes flicked across the streets with sharp insight. The kingdom bent around her, not physically, but in a way that suggested the illusions recognized someone who could unmake them with little effort. Beside her walked Varuk, the second Arch-Fae. His presence radiated tension. His steps left faint distortions in the cobblestones, as if the ground itself recoiled. His gaze carried pressure that would have made lesser beings tremble. He saw everything. He judged everything. Unlike Silver, he did not smile. He did not offer warmth. He surveyed my kingdom with the steady evaluation of someone measuring the strength of steel he intended to bend, then break. Then there was Heath. He did not shine with Fae glamour or radiate the dangerous beauty of ancient magic. He appeared almost plain when compared to the Fae at his side, carrying himself with quiet certainty. His eyes held a depth that did not match his appearance. They were eyes that had witnessed centuries and carried the cost of every choice. As he walked, the lay responded in small, shifting ripples, even though he used no spell. His presence unsettled the perfection of the realm. The illusions dimmed in his shadow. I felt irritation prick at the edges of my mind, yet I also felt curiosity, and that mixture is rarely safe. I landed before them with wings spread wide, my talons cracking the polished marble beneath me. The citizens gasped and bowed, but the three did not flinch. Heath looked up and studied me calmly, as if dragons were creatures he encountered often. Silver offered a courteous nod. Varric simply watched with the stillness of a hunter waiting for movement. I spoke first. I asked why they had come, and I asked with a voice that shook the air. It was not anger. It was authority. My kingdom was a place of order, and strangers who carried power were expected to show respect. Heath did not kneel. He did not bow. He instead spoke as if we were equals. I found that arrogance irritating, though I did not yet understand the nature of his resolve. He told me they had come to investigate disturbances in the ley. He told me that my kingdom felt woven in a manner that placed strain upon the surrounding world. I listened, but his words clashed against my pride. Silver added her observations with gentle clarity. She described the way light bent unnaturally along the rooftops, and how the rivers flowed with patterns too perfect to be natural. Her voice carried kindness, yet each word pierced deeper than expected. Varric then spoke. His voice was cold, a blade drawn across stone. He claimed my kingdom felt hollow, just hollow. His words struck me harder than any weapon could. I felt the ley shift within me, as though responding to the rising heat in my chest. I am a dragon. Pride is carved into my bones. Hearing my kingdom called hollow stirred anger that threatened to ignite. The architect's influence reacted to that emotion, pushing me to defend what it had helped create. My thoughts blurred for a brief moment. I felt an intrusive surge of certainty that the strangers meant harm. It was subtle, but it pressed against my mind like fingers urging me into conflict. Before anger fully overcame me, Heath stepped forward. He raised a hand not to challenge, but in calm invitation. He asked if he could walk the kingdom beside me. He spoke softly, with a tone that carried no hostility. The rage flickered, and I realized how strange it felt to hear such a request delivered with honesty. I allowed it, though suspicion clung to me. We walked the streets together. Silver traced her fingers along the illusions, revealing flaws in their structure that I had ignored. Varric pointed to areas where the ley bent under strain. Heath listened and asked questions that lingered in my mind long after he posed them. He asked how many lives within my kingdom I had personally spoken to. He asked if I ever wondered why the same merchants appeared at the same stalls at the same hour each day. He asked why harvests never failed, even when weather patterns shifted in the surrounding lands. I felt unease settle over me. I wished to ignore their insights, yet each observation uncovered a truth I did not wish to face. My people spoke kindly to me, but their expressions faltered when confronted with unexpected questions. Their thoughts looped, their gestures repeated. Silver asked a young boy about the shape of the stars the night before, and the child hesitated as if searching for permission to answer. It was the smallest hesitation, but it was a pannikin of revelation. Heath then placed a hand upon the ground, and the ley trembled. The illusions flickered. A street corner shimmered between two forms, one perfect and glowing, the other cracked and worn. My breath caught. I felt the architect stir within the ley, reacting to this interference. It whispered to me that the strangers sought to harm my kingdom, that they were threats to all I had built. The whisper felt like my own thought, yet it carried a hunger I did not recognize. I recoiled, wings flaring. The ground shook beneath me. Citizens scattered. Silver stepped back with a look of sorrow. Varric placed a hand on the hilt of his weapon. Heath stood firm and asked me to listen. I heard him, but anger roared louder in my chest. I felt betrayal. That moment began the fall of the kingdom I cherished. The strangers did not strike me. They did not threaten me. They revealed something that terrified me more than any blade. They revealed that my realm was not a wonder shaped by my will, but a construct shaped by the architect's hand. They revealed that I had been guided, not strengthened. They revealed that my people lived within a lie. You see now why my trust is rare. My pride once blinded me, and it cost an entire nation its life. Part 3. The Shattering of a Dragon's Dream. You have listened this far, and I see a somber stillness settling over your faces. That is wise. What happened next carved itself into the deepest part of me. The battle you survived moments ago is nothing compared to the one I now describe. Sit closer to the magma if you must. Its heat will remind you that the world is still alive, even when memory brings ruin into the open. When Heath pressed his hand upon the lay and pulled truth to the surface, the architect retaliated with hunger that felt ancient. The air thickened until breathing became a struggle. The sky dimmed as if strangled by unseen claws. Every person in the kingdom froze. Their eyes widened with a strange, glossy reflection. I knew something had changed, yet I refused to accept the depth of the shift. One heartbeat later, they turned toward Heath and the Fae with movements that belonged to puppets guided by a violent master. Their faces stretched into expressions of fury that did not match any feeling they once carried. Fingers twitched, teeth clenched. The architect had reached inside their minds and hollowed them with ruthless efficiency. The people I loved had been reshaped into tools crafted for a single purpose. Silver reacted first. She raised her hand and drew in a long breath. Her expression shifted from playful curiosity to a deep, terrible clarity. A glow bloomed in her palm. The illusions around her cracked like ice beneath a heavy weight. Without speaking, she unleashed a ribbon of fey light that whipped through the air and sliced through the first wave of enthralled citizens. Limbs fell. Bodies collapsed. The marble beneath them steamed as blood pooled in widening arcs. Varric moved like a collapsing storm. His weapon hummed with lay power that gathered at the edge of each strike. He leapt into the crowd and drove the blade through the chest of a man I had known for decades. The sound of bone cracking echoed across the plaza. He pivoted, swung upward, and tore open another enthralled soldier from hip to collarbone. His expression remained cold and focused. He fought with an unyielding precision that did not falter even when children ran at him with empty eyes. Heath walked into the chaos with calm purpose. He extended his arm, and power erupted from his palm in a surge that shattered bodies instantly. There were no sparks. There was no show of flame or lightning. Only pure force that crushed bone and muscle into broken ruin. Each motion from him carried the same terrible weight. Each strike reminded me that he fought to reveal a truth that I had refused to acknowledge. I screamed for him to stop. I commanded him to cease the slaughter. My voice split stone and sent vibrations through the ground, yet Heath did not falter. He shouted back that these were not people as I remembered them. He shouted that the architect had hollowed them long ago, and that my refusal to face the truth had allowed this horror to grow stronger. The enthralled masses surged again. They came in waves, their movements jerky and unnatural. Their screams sounded like echoes dragged through broken lay glass. The architect had devoured their minds, leaving only fragments behind. I saw one of my oldest advisors among them. His face twisted in rage. His eyes shone with the architect's influence. He raised a rusted sword and charged straight at Heath. Silver intercepted him with a downward slash that cut his spine in half. His body collapsed in a heap. I felt anguish rip through me. That grief fanned the flames of anger inside my chest. My wings spread wide as instinct overtook reason. I leapt and sent a cloud of dust into the air. The force of the impact scattered several enthralled citizens, yet they rose again with unnatural vigor. I roared with the full power of my lungs. Buildings trembled, trees bent. Those closest to me fell to their knees under the power of the sound, but the architect kept them moving. Heath looked up at me with sorrow rather than fear. He shouted that I needed to see the truth. He shouted that the kingdom was a shell, and that I'd been living inside a prison built from ambition. His voice pierced my fury, yet I refused to accept it. I lunged toward him with talons extended. Silver darted beneath my wings and struck the tendons near my ankles. Pain jolted through me. I swung my tail instinctively and clipped her shoulder. The blow hurled her across the plaza, yet she rose again, smiling through the blood that spilled from her lips. Varric rushed in next and drove his blade deep between the plates of my scales. The pain burned. I reared back and struck him with my foreleg, sending him crashing through a pillar in a burst of shattered stone. Heath moved toward me with deliberate confidence. He leapt onto the remnants of a broken archway and then onto my foreleg, using the gaps in my scales as footholds. He climbed with astonishing agility. When he reached my neck, he placed his hand against me again. A surge ran through my body. My thoughts blurred. For a moment, I saw the world through both illusion and truth. The illusion showed shining walls, thriving people, and glowing skies. The truth showed rotting wood, crumbling stone, and faces hollowed by the architect's influence. I thrashed in horror. I roared until the air trembled. I struck the ground with my tail and sent shockwaves through the plaza. The illusions cracked fully, revealing the ruined kingdom beneath. Those who still fought under the architect's control screamed as their minds struggled to reconcile false memories with collapsing reality. Heath jumped from my neck as I lashed out. Silver and Varric joined him at my flanks. Together they coordinated with unsettling precision. Silver hurled bolts of shimmering fey magic that froze my joints. Varric struck the weakened plates in my armor with brutal force, his blade biting deeper each time. Heath unleashed bursts of pure ley power that rattled my bones and forced my breath to falter. I stumbled backward, wings beating uselessly as I tried to regain balance. The architect's whispers tore into my mind and urged me to kill them. It promised salvation. It promised restoration. It promised victory in exchange for obedience. For one moment, I believed it. For one moment, I allowed its influence to surge through me. I inhaled deeply, ready to bathe the plaza in flame. Heath saw the movement and raised both hands. His voice rose above the screams and cracked illusions. He spoke a single word that struck the ley with enough force to silence everything around us. The flame died in my throat. My wings froze mid-beat. My heart hammered with violent tremors. In that suspended moment, he spoke quietly. He told me that the people I mourned had vanished long before he arrived. He told me that the architect had dug into their minds until nothing remained but hollow shells. He told me that if I did not face this truth, then every life in my kingdom would have to die without purpose. The plaza around us was filled with corpses. Silver leaned on her blade, exhausted. Varric wiped blood from his weapon with a steady hand. The enthralled citizens lay in broken piles. The illusions had collapsed fully, revealing cracked streets, collapsed houses, and fields overtaken by decay. This was the truth I had refused to see. My kingdom was already dead. I lowered my head and felt the weight of centuries press upon my spine. The architect's whispers faded as my doubt grew. The silence of the plaza wrapped around me like a shroud. There were no more illusions to hide behind. There were no more lies to feed my pride. Only ruin remained, and my heart felt the depth of that loss. When I looked at Heath, I finally understood. He had not come to destroy my kingdom. Part 4. Judgment in the Sky of Ash. Even after hearing how my kingdom crumbled, you listen. That alone shows a measure of resolve that many mortals lack. Some who heard this story before you turned away before the truth settled. You do not. Your stillness earns the rest of the tale, though it comes with sorrow and pain that shaped the next centuries of my life. After the last enthralled citizen fell and the plaza grew silent, a quiet dread spread through the land. The architect had retreated, yet its absence felt like the breath held by a predator watching from the shadows. The air no longer shimmered with false perfection. Instead, it trembled with lingering fractures, as if the land itself struggled to recover from years of distortion. I stood among the ruins of what I believed was prosperity. My claws sank into the cracked stone. Pain throbbed along my limbs where Silver and Varric had struck. My heart felt heavier than any wound. Heath walked before me and spoke of healing. He told me that the architect would rise again unless its hold on dragons was severed. He looked at me with a sorrow that I did not understand then. I thought he pitied the destruction. I later realized he pitied the price I would soon pay. The ley stirred. I felt vibrations ripple across mountains, rivers, and deep caverns. Something ancient awakened to the collapse of my kingdom. Heath stepped back. Silver and Varric retreated to his side. They watched me with caution, yet also with understanding. They knew what came next. They knew who would answer the trembling call of the ley. A shadow swept across the ruined plaza. Then another. Then more. I lifted my head. The sky darkened as dragons assembled from distant reaches of Vorengard. Wings blotted out the sun. Their roars echoed across valleys and shattered hillsides. Never in my life had I seen so many of my kind gather with such urgency. They descended in a circle that encircled the ruins of my citadel. Their faces carried an array of emotions. Some bore sorrow. Some bore disappointment. Others bore nothing but cold judgment. The weight of their presence pressed upon my scales until my chest tightened. Then Alengenta arrived. Their wings unfurled. Their scales shimmered with colors that shifted like starlight. Their eyes carried the depth of centuries far older than my own. When they landed, the ground cracked under the weight of their presence. My parents stood before me, and in that moment, I felt smaller than I had since the day I first learned to breathe fire. Alengenta looked upon me in silence. The other dragons bowed their heads. I lowered mine slowly, unsure if I deserved to stand tall in their presence. A strange ache gripped my chest. I realized I longed for comfort, yet I knew I would not receive it. One of the elder dragons spoke. Their voice drifted across the ruins like rolling thunder. They accused me of allowing the architect into the heart of dragonkind. They accused me of embracing power that twisted the ley into unnatural shapes. They accused me of ruling a false kingdom. Their words cut through me with every syllable. I tried to speak, but my voice faltered. The truth had been carved into me by the destruction I had witnessed. I admitted my pride. I admitted my blindness. I admitted that I had believed the architect's whispers. The dragons listened without interruption. Their expressions did not soften. Alengenta finally stepped forward. When they spoke, their voice held a weight that silenced every breath in the plaza. They did not raise their tone. They did not roar. They did not unleash flame. Their words alone carried power enough to make my wings tremble. They said they had watched my rise with pride. They said they had hoped I would forge a kingdom shaped by wisdom rather than ambition. They said they had believed I might become an example to younger dragons. Hearing this caused me more pain than any wound from Heath's battle. For a moment, I glimpsed the pride they once carried for me, and that memory alone was enough to make my spirit waver. Then Alengenta spoke of consequence. They said that my actions had placed Vorengard in danger. They said that if even one dragon fell under the architect's control fully, the entire world would suffer. They said that what happened to my people could not be allowed to happen anywhere else. Their sorrow was greater than their anger, but that sorrow shaped a judgment I had not expected. I asked what punishment awaited me. My voice cracked, yet I managed to hold my head high. Alengenta looked at me with a gaze that felt like a final embrace. They pronounced the curse. I would never again claim a domain. I would never rule a kingdom, command a city, or protect a territory as my own. Any place where I attempted to establish rule would unravel through disaster. Storms would rise. Ley fractures would bloom. The land would reject my claim. The curse ensured that my ambition could not be twisted again. The words struck me with the force of a mountain colliding with my chest. My wings sagged. My breath caught. I had spent centuries shaping a domain that defined my identity, and with a single sentence, that possibility was torn from me forever. The other dragons looked upon me with a mixture of pity and caution. I saw understanding in some of their gazes. I saw disdain in others. I lowered my head. My claws dug into the cracked stone. I whispered that I understood. I did not protest or plead. I accepted the curse because I knew I had earned it. That acceptance broke something inside me, yet it also freed me from the architect's shadow. Alangenta approached and lowered their head. They touched their snout to mine. The gesture was gentle, but the meaning felt heavier than the sky itself. It was a farewell of sorts. Not a severing of blood, but a recognition that my path had diverged from theirs. I felt a tremor ripple through the ground as the curse settled into my bones. Heath watched with solemn eyes. Silver leaned against Varric, exhaustion heavy in her limbs. The three said nothing. They let the dragons judge me, for they understood that this was not their place to interfere. When the judgment ended, the dragons took flight one by one. Their wings stirred the dust and lifted broken banners from the rubble. Alangenta was the last to leave. They rose into the sky with slow, powerful strokes, their shadows sweeping across my ruined kingdom. I watched until they vanished into the clouds. I stood alone in the ashes of what I once believed was greatness. The curse pulsed within my chest like a heartbeat made from sorrow and consequence. I understood then that my path would never again walk alongside thrones, crowns, or banners. I would become a wanderer in a world that feared my presence. That truth settled into me with a finality that shaped the centuries to come. Part 5. The Dragon Who Belongs to Nothing. Few mortals have heard this much of my past and remained before me. That alone tells me a truth about you. You are not faint of heart. You are not blind to the darker corners of this world. You are not fragile in the way so many become when faced with the truth of dragons and the lay. Because you continue to listen, I will tell you the final part. When the dragons departed and the curse settled within my bones, the plaza grew silent. The ruins of my kingdom stretched out around me like the ribcage of a titan. Wind carried the scent of blood and shattered memories. I lowered my head and let the silence sit upon my shoulders. I felt hollow. I felt stripped of purpose. I felt as if the world had torn away the shape of who I once believed myself to be. Heath approached me when the last shadow left the sky. His voice carried no judgment, only a steady patience. He told me that the architect would rise again, and that I needed to understand the dangers of belonging to any domain. Silver stepped beside him, her wounds still fresh but her spirit unchanged. She offered me a soft smile, one tinged with sorrow rather than triumph. Varric said nothing. His gaze met mine with the understanding of a warrior who knew what it meant to lose everything and continue breathing. I did not speak to them. I could not. Instead, I spread my wings and took flight, leaving the ruins behind as the last light sank across the broken plains. I flew through night without resting, without direction, without thought. When dawn broke, it found me perched upon a lonely ridge overlooking a valley untouched by civilization. The silence of that place comforted me. For the first time in centuries, I allowed myself to mourn without interruption. The curse traveled with me. I felt it whenever I lingered too long in one place. Lands that once seemed peaceful shifted under its influence. Forests twisted. Rivers rose. Storms gathered without warning. The world itself rejected my attempt to settle. I learned quickly that my presence carried weight that could reshuffle reality. I flew from one region to another, never stopping long enough to risk the land falling into imbalance. My name faded from mortal stories during those years, which suited me well. I wished for solitude, and solitude embraced me. Yet solitude does not remain. Over the next centuries, I encountered travelers fleeing ruined settlements. Some begged for help without knowing who I was. Some simply ran until they collapsed from exhaustion. I carried a few upon my back across mountains or deserts, though they never remembered the journey clearly. Dragons frighten mortals deeply, and memory often twists when fear takes hold. Villages sometimes glimpsed me circling overhead. Children whispered of a wandering guardian who passed through storms without touching the ground. These small legends never displeased me. I found comfort in being a silent protector without expectation or burden. I fought fiends that spilled from ley fractures. I cleared paths through collapsed caverns when miners became trapped. I guided lost caravans away from lands that hung on the brink of magical collapse. None of these actions built a domain. None anchored me. They were moments of aid without permanence, and the curse did not stir. I learned to navigate the world as a creature who belongs nowhere, yet guards the many places he can never claim. One century brought me into a forest thick with fey enchantment. Threads of light drifted among trees, carrying laughter and warnings in equal measure. I sensed ancient magic woven through every root and stone. As I entered the clearing, Silver emerged from a shimmer of light, her presence unchanged by time. She greeted me with a playful bow, though her eyes still held the memory of the day she had cut into my scales. Varric stepped from the shadows behind her, his expression stern, yet not hostile. They had come to investigate disturbances in the ley. They expected trouble. They did not expect me. We exchanged few words, for Fae speak more easily with gestures and expression. Yet there was peace in our reunion. Silver touched one of my claws lightly and said she hoped my wings had carried me to better places since our last meeting. Varric simply nodded in acknowledgement. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not forgiveness, but recognition. They knew I had changed, and they accepted that change without ceremony. Heath was not with them, yet his presence lingered in the threads of the ley, carried like a distant echo of footsteps. I sensed he still fought the architect in battles far from my path. I did not seek him. He would appear where he was needed, not where he was wanted. I learned that truth long ago, and it shaped how I traveled through the centuries. As the world marched toward the fall, I watched from the sky. I saw kingdoms rise with promise and crumble under their own weight. I saw cities clash in flames. I saw mortals unleash weapons of unimaginable devastation. I saw ley storms tear mountains apart. I saw the architect's influence returning like a shadow creeping across forgotten ground. Through all of it, I remained unanchored. The curse protected the world from me, and it protected me from the temptation to settle again. Now we come to this present moment, the 10th year after the fall. The two cities that annihilated each other lie scattered across this plain, their ruins still steaming from the ley burst that melted soldiers into magma pools. You fought with valor amid horrors that would break many. I watched from the sky as fire rolled across the battlefield, as shadows twisted into unnatural forms, and as your resolve remained firm. That resolve stirred something in me that has been quiet for too long. You remind me of those who once stood before me with fearlessness and purpose. You remind me of Silver, Varric, and even Heath in your own ways. When this battle ended, and you still stood despite the ruin around you, I knew I should speak to you. Dragons do not share stories easily. Yet I felt you deserved the truth of why I wander alone and why I watch from afar. I do not belong to any land. I do not lead armies. I do not command cities. I roam the world as a protector who claims nothing. The curse forbids me from ruling, yet it liberated me from the chains of ambition that once blinded me. I found a new identity within that freedom. I found a path shaped not by kingdoms, but by moments of choice. I intervene where I can. I retreat when my presence endangers the land. I watch mortals rise and fall with respect rather than control. As I speak to you now, surrounded by smoke, ash, and molten stone, I see the same turning point in your journey that once stood before mine. You face a world cracked open by the fall. You face the architect's lingering shadows. You face enemies who shape themselves from the lay. You face choices that will carve your future in ways you cannot yet imagine. Remember this: greatness is not found in ruling or owning. Greatness is found in understanding the cost of your choices and carrying them with honor. I learned this too late to save my kingdom. You have time to learn it now. If you choose to walk forward with purpose, then perhaps you will shape a future that does not fall to illusion or pride. If you do, then I will watch your journey with interest. Should danger rise where your strength falters, I may intervene. Should you lose your way, I may remind you to reconsider your path. I, Enki, will never command you, but if you should see me, call my name. I should heed your call in due time. This is the truth from I, Enki, the dragon who belongs to nothing yet wanders endlessly.